All right, another week. Kirby Smart and the Georgia Bulldogs are #1 in the newest college football playoff poll, as they should be. They're the most complete team in the country. And if you're a Georgia fan, obviously watching this video, I want to know, which team do you not want Georgia to play come playoff time? Because I think Georgia's going to get in there. All they have to do is beat Mississippi State on the road. That should happen. At Kentucky and Lexington could be a tougher game than people think. Georgia should win that game, and of course at home against Georgia Tech. If they win those 3 games, they're in. Shouldn't matter what happens at the SEC Championship game. So they're in. Let's go down the top 10 real quick in the latest poll. Georgia, Ohio State at 2, Michigan 3, TCU 4, Tennessee, Oregon, LSU, Southern Cal, Alabama, and Clemson. Now, there's only maybe 3 teams on this list, in my opinion, that would give Georgia a game. Let's talk about Ohio State real quick. Easily one of the most complete teams in the country. They're not as complete as Georgia, though. Total offense, they're 14th. Georgia's number 3. Scoring offense, they're number 1. They're putting up a lot of points. C.J. Stroud, the quarterback, is probably the front runner for the Heisman Trophy right now. He's really good at hitting open receivers, just like Hendon Hooker was. I would be really interested to see how they match up with Georgia. I don't think they'd be scoring a lot of points against Georgia's defense at all. I think Georgia's defense is the number 1 defense in the country. I don't care that they're ranked number 5 in total defense and number 2 in scoring defense. They're the best defense in college football. Total defense, Ohio State is 6, Georgia's 5. Scoring defense, the Buckeyes are number 8 in the country, giving up just 15 points a game. Georgia is number 2, right behind Illinois, giving up only 10 points a game. They've got a quarterback. They've got plenty of weapons on the outside. They've got a rushing attack. I think the defense is soft. I think overall there's just not a lot of toughness to their team. I think they're a very finesse team that knows how to score points, do it in a hurry, and do it against some so-so defenses. Ohio State is really good. They're not as good as Georgia, but that might be the team that I think Georgia fans are like, okay, you know, this is a really good team. Still don't want to play the Buckeyes if we don't have to. We're going to find out if they're better than Michigan, though, at the end of the year. Michigan, they're a strong team, no doubt about it. We saw what happened last year. I find it hard to believe that Michigan is better this year than they were last year when they lost their 3 best defenders. But offensively, they're better. They had pretty much everyone come back, experienced quarterback, strong running game. They want to play smash mouth football just like Georgia does, but they don't have the personnel, they don't have the talent, they don't have the depth, and they don't have the coaching staff to compete with Georgia. And we saw it last year. We were told that the Georgia staff and the players knew that they were going to blow out Michigan when they saw Wolverine players coming into the stadium with their phones on, taking videos, walking around the stadium for the first time. The moment was too big for them, and you could see it early on, or at least the team did. They knew they were going to dominate Michigan in the Orange Bowl, and that's exactly what happened. Don't tell me Michigan is so much better than they were last year. I'm not buying it. Statistically, they're having a great year. Number 3 in scoring defense, giving up 12 points per game. Total defense, they're number 2. Scoring offense, they're 5th. Total offense, they're 21st. They run the ball well. Blake Corum, another Heisman Trophy candidate, I guess you'd say, just under 1,200 yards so far this year, 16 touchdowns. They're playing good football. They're strong defensively. They run the ball. They want to punch you in the mouth over and over again. They're not going to do that against Georgia's defense or offense. Georgia's going to score more on them than everyone else has, and I'm not sure Michigan's going to be able to run the ball on Georgia's defense. No one really has for 4 quarters. I don't think Michigan would either. TCU, nobody on the face of the earth thinks TCU can play with Georgia, much less beat them. If Georgia has a semifinal matchup with TCU, it's going to be as easy as it gets for the Dogs this year in the playoffs. That's what Georgia fans should hope happen. They should want TCU to go undefeated and get, sneak into the playoffs. They play behind. They do a good job of coming back into the games. Max Duggan is a good quarterback. They don't have nearly as much talent or depth as Georgia does. Georgia would run TCU out of the building. Tennessee, we saw what happened last week. If they do play again in a neutral field, I expect the game to be a little closer. Maybe not the score, because I do think it was a 14-point blowout. Georgia dominated them, and it might not look that way on the scoreboard, but if you watch the game, there was no comparison. Georgia was clearly the better team and, again, dominated in a 14-point win. Now, it's hard to beat a team twice, right? We know that. We saw that last year, but Tennessee knows what they can improve on. Since they lost the game, they can change some things, figure out something else that might work. And again, not playing in Sanford Stadium is going to help them a lot right now. Nobody is beating Georgia in Sanford Stadium. I can assure you that. For Georgia, you don't really want to change up anything that you did against Tennessee because it worked, right? And you don't want to go too far away from the scheme that you had because that might end up helping Tennessee. So they keep doing their game and be physical. They won the game in the trenches. Tennessee is not going to get stronger or much better in the trenches over the next month and a half, right? So if they do play again, Georgia's still going to be the more physical team. They're going to be the tougher team. They're going to be the deeper team and the more talented team. None of that's going to change. So does Tennessee, could they beat Georgia again? Maybe, but I'd still say 8 out of 10 times Georgia beats Tennessee on a neutral field or wherever. So I don't think Tennessee really scares Georgia fans because they just got beat pretty bad to Georgia. Oregon, they lost to Georgia by 46 points. I know Bo Nix is talking a lot right now. Do I think the game would be a lot closer? Yeah, but Georgia hasn't gotten worse. Oregon has played better. That doesn't mean they're a better team. They just haven't played Georgia again since week 1. So yes, they're dominating. They've got a tough stretch this season. We'll see how they do against Washington, a team that's not very good. I expect Oregon to blow them out. I think that game is on the road at night. So that would be an impressive win to keep them in this playoff hunt. And then they play Utah. If they beat Washington and Utah, run the table, win the conference, they should be in the playoff. But Oregon's not scaring Georgia. Georgia knows how to beat Oregon. I mean, they just wiped the floor with them, made them look like Vanderbilt or Arkansas State, anything like that. That's what they made Oregon look like. So they might be playing a lot better, but there's no reason out there to think that Oregon can beat Georgia. There's no reason at all to think that. I don't think Georgia fans or the team's not scared of anyone. All right, they think they are going to bulldoze through every team in the country. Right now, it kind of looks like they could. There's no way I can see Oregon beating Georgia. Doesn't matter where they play. It's just not happening. LSU, they're playing really well. I know that they lost to a bad Florida State team, played awful. They got drugged by Tennessee at home. They played a lot better since then. It all starts with Jaden Daniels, the new quarterback they have, 2,000 yards passing right now, 17 touchdowns, just 1 interception. He also leads the team in rushing, 620 yards, 10 more rushing touchdowns. He's playing well. He's going to have the game of his life if they do end up playing Georgia in the SEC championship game. Georgia's the better team. LSU's got plenty of talent, and they're playing better. They're buying in, and he particularly is playing really well, but they haven't played a defense like Georgia's. He's going to have some trouble, and he's going to have to prove that he can win games with his arm. I don't expect them to allow him to run the ball a lot. They're going to contain him, control him, keep him in the pocket, and he's going to have to sit there and make great throws and reads and break down Georgia's defense, something that nobody has been able to do so far. But they are a talented team. Georgia should win against LSU in convincing fashion, right? So I don't think LSU's a team that could really knock out Georgia. Alabama, they're always going to be a good team with Bryce Young. I know they have 2 tough losses, tight losses, both in crazy road atmospheres. I still think they're a good team. I don't think they're going to end up winning the West, so I don't think Georgia's going to play them. Georgia would wipe the floor with Clemson. I mean, you go down the list, and it's hard to find a team that could really play with Georgia. And again, what Georgia did to Michigan last year is still stuck in my head a little bit. I know Georgia's different. I don't think Georgia is as good as they were last year. They still lost so many guys, but they're not as far off as they were last year either, especially from a statistical standpoint. So don't tell me that Michigan is a whole lot better than they were last year. If they go head-to-head, Georgia is going to play Georgia/Michigan football and punch them in the mouth over and over again. So I'm not buying that Michigan is some completely better team and that this year they can hang around a more physical, talented Georgia team. I'm not buying it. Maybe Ohio State is the team that could give Georgia some trouble, but top to bottom, I think Georgia is a better team, better coaches. They're playing better. I mean, Ohio State messed around with Northwestern. They beat Notre Dame, didn't look all that impressive, though. They messed around with Penn State. That was a 4-quarter game. They've got a lot of talent, and they're always a team that could win a championship, but they always seem to fall apart and they lose to teams that are better than them every single time. I think Georgia's better than Ohio State. So you tell me, is there one team that you do not want Georgia to play in the semifinal or the championship game? Let me know in the comments section. Always appreciate y'all watching these videos. Stay tuned to the next one coming up right now, and I'll see you over on Dog Post.